Welcome back to the Weekly News Roundup. This is the Privacy Edition. We always start these at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday nights. So if you want to catch the news live, otherwise you can catch these little clips as well. Let's go and jump right on into the news here. The biggest problem with Microsoft's fractured TikTok deal. So if you've been living under a rock, in fact, I believe today was it? I think Trump's like, hey, we're going to ban TikTok in 45 days. Good luck with that. How do you ban an app off of a phone? That's very interesting, especially in this day of like Tors and VPNs and stuff like that. But basically, if an American company swoops in and buys it, then they don't have to close. Apple's like, we don't want to touch that crap. Facebook, I think Facebook says we don't really want to touch that crap either. I can't remember exactly Facebook's position, but Microsoft's like, yeah, maybe. If you give us like the whole world instead of just United States, we'll think about getting it. But there's been a lot of back and forth. Even this article, I think this one was from 3 days ago, so it's probably out of date. The information on the Microsoft TikTok situation has been going back and forth. I'm not even up to date on it anymore. But basically, Trump today signs the order to ban TikTok in like 45 days unless a company comes in and buys it. Microsoft's like, yeah, we'll think about buying that. But they looked everything over and go, you know what? We don't really want to buy just a little tiny part of the company. We want to buy a lot of the company. And so buying a lot of the company is something that they're looking at doing. And so it's kind of 50-50 if TikTok is going to be bought or not. And I couldn't really argue it unless anybody else knows more information about this than I do. But just grab your latest article and find the updates to see what the current status is. But it's not a clear deal that Microsoft's absolutely going to buy it. All right. Next, Twitter faces the FTC probe. So this is something that we covered this when it first broke a couple months back. It was long time. It was BC. That's before the coronavirus. So Twitter was caught with. Of course, they started being Gestapo, like forcing everybody to give up their phone numbers. Now you could still get away from it. Twitter does not have any of my phone numbers. I think I have business accounts with a couple of my different Twitter accounts. They don't have any of my phone numbers because you just got to dig into them a little bit and they'll reactivate it on the email stuff. But they were using all of those phone numbers. They were like doing forced Gestapo techniques to get all those phone numbers collected. And then when they would have those phone numbers collected, then what they would end up doing is they would then go in and use those phone numbers to use for targeting ads and sell those phone numbers to ad companies. This was a pretty big deal, and the FCC is reeling up right now. They're winding up. They're eating up their spinach. It's going to be called wackies, or it's going to be like, don't do that again. I mean, you guys saw the fallout of that huge Google privacy deal. Hey, sign in for your $12. Yeah, I'm going to sign in and get less money than it cost me to order a pizza. Nah. I don't need your $12, Google. Let's see what we had here. In the filing, Twitter estimates the range of probable loss it faces in the probe between 150 million and 250 million, although it adds that the matter remains unresolved and there can be no assurance as the timing or the terms of any final outcome. So, they're just harvesting stuff. There's a common problem. Twitter is not the first social media firm to be investigated for exploiting personal information users provided for security reasons. Again, this is not things that you're giving Twitter for whatever purposes. This is not just you going in there and giving up your information. This is use this number for the security of your account, and then they use that information for other purposes later. Facebook had that push. That's kind of what happened in Cambridge Analytica, and that's kind of what's going on there. All right. This is one of the NSA rulings. We have a couple NSA rulings. So NSA is warning us against using the Find My Phone, but they're also giving us notices about Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This is very interesting because as we're following the contact tracing stuff, it's supposed to be the temporary contact tracing stuff that we're just going to bake into the operating system. Yeah, I really believe that's temporary. But the idea behind these is like, hey, it just uses Bluetooth. Well, do you realize how dangerous it is to keep Bluetooth on in your devices? How do you know this isn't, where's my tinfoil hat? How do we know that this is not a tinfoil ploy? A tinfoil ploy to keep Bluetooth turned on in more places perpetually so you can be warned if you walked by somebody in a park who has the big bad boogeyman virus. And then you can be warned against it, but at the same time, anything and everything around you can track your motion. So NSA comes out and is like, hey, that Find Your Phone thing, that's something on the iPhones and things like that, but other services have it as well. These things require Wi-Fi, they require Bluetooth, they require GPS locations. And by the way, there's other things. So I actually just I installed EOS. It's a de-Googled micro G Android ROM on one of my spare phones to do a review on that operating system soon. And as I was digging through all the settings, like they have in there, and of course it's like all privacy stuff, but they have this stuff turned on for Mozilla's location tracking stuff. I need to look into that a little bit more to figure out exactly what's going on. It's just something I noticed. But these are the things that we're looking at. We're utilizing, when you keep Wi-Fi turned on, you keep Bluetooth turned on, you're using location services, you're turning on these where's my phone stuff. Even the NSA now is saying don't turn these on unless you absolutely have to. Quote, location data can be extremely valuable and must be protected, an advisory published Tuesday said. It can reveal details about the number of users in a location, user and supply movements, daily routines, and can expose otherwise unknown associations between users and locations. Like, remember when Facebook started using locations and people who were customers of the same psychologist's office started getting friend requests or started to get friend recommendations because Facebook's like, hey, you guys all spend 45 minutes in this location. I bet you could be good friends. Yeah, that's frightening, people. That's frightening. Okay. Now, the cost of convenience. These features come at a cost. Adversaries may be able to tap into the location data, adversaries like the NSA, into the data that the app developers, advertising services, and other third parties receive from the apps and then stores it in a massive database. Adversaries are also subscribe to services such as those offered by Securus and Location Smart, two services the New York Times and Krebs on Security documented respectively. Both companies either tracked or sold locations of customer data collected by cell towers of major cellular carriers. So here is the NSA's recommendations. Disable location service settings on the device. I've been telling you that for a while. Disable radios when they are not actively in use. In other words, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, if these capabilities are not needed. Use airplane mode when the device is not in use. Ensure Bluetooth and Wi-Fi are disabled when airplane mode is engaged. Apps should be given as few permissions as possible. Guys, maybe the NSA has been watching my channel. I've been telling you all this stuff for years. Set privacy settings to ensure apps are not using or sharing location data. Avoid using apps related to location if possible, since these apps inherently expose user location. If user location, like, here's the thing. Look at the permissions in an app. Don't just like brainlessly download. Oh, that looks fun. Look at the permissions. Okay, if it's a mapping tool, yes, it needs location. If it's a video game, there's no earthly reason it needs location unless you're playing Pokemon Go, in which case, burn it off of your phone because that's frightening. All right, disable advertising permissions to get the greatest extent possible. Turn off settings for Find My Phone, Find My Device that allow lost, stolen, misplaced devices to be tracked. Minimize web browsing on a device as much as possible. By the way, I'll mention though, if you use Firefox Clar, maybe a few other browsers. I'm not sure if the DuckDuckGo browser does this or not, but these do not even have the connections into using GPS services at all. So Firefox Clar / Firefox Focus, these ones here are better browsers for your mobile device because they don't even have the capabilities to access location services. At least not a lot of them. Avoid using anonymizing VPNs to help obscure, use anonymizing VPNs to obscure location. Minimize the amounts of data with location information is stored in the cloud. Like, This is the NSA. This is how crazy 2020 is. The NSA is now giving us really good sound advice about, maybe they're like, we're collecting too much data. We need to remind the American people to do this so we stop collecting their data. I don't know what's going on with them. All right. So Senator Ron Wyden is now introducing a privacy bill that would ban government agencies from buying personal information from data brokers. Yet another interesting case from Wyden. Like, can you do that? Thank you. Another interesting bill from this guy. What he's at play here is he's trying to remove what Edward Snowden always warned us about with the third-party doctrine. So the third-party doctrine is the Constitution prevents the government from spying on us. Okay? But Google spies on us. The government can say, never mind you. They're going to go right to Google and they request information from Google. Well, if you're utilizing Google services and Google knows everything about your phone, they can now grab that data from you and use it without going through the courts or getting necessarily the warrants. In other words, like, to ask them for the information, they actually do still need the warrant. But to buy the information from them, oh, no problem at all. So the bill is to introduce a law preventing the government from purchasing information from data brokers. In other words, all information about you still needs to come from a warrant, is what he's trying to do. So that's kind of what is going on here. Now, before we dive onto the rest of the news, I do have some affiliates. So we're going to look at ProWritingAid today. If you're a writer like I am, I'm an author. I've authored 7 books. One is a science fiction novel called Synaptergy. And the other ones are 6 different Christian books out there. And I use ProWritingAid has always been a privacy-focused grammar tool, very much like Grammarly is a competitor, except these guys have always been privacy-focused from the very beginning. With my affiliate code there, tlm.li/PWA, you can get 20% off the yearly subscription or the lifetime subscription. So with that, if you are interested in writing and you need to do some better grammar, go ahead and have a look at ProWritingAid. Now for the rest of our stories. Let me close out Ron Wyden one. All right, so Windows Defender is flagging CCleaner as a pup. That's a potentially unwanted application. And with Windows Defender doing this, I completely agree. CCleaner used to be really good. If you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years, CCleaner, the company behind it, Paraform, was purchased by Avast, which is no longer a good company. They were a good company, but they became basically a spy and tracking tool. So CCleaner, one of the challenges is that CCleaner will, I believe it will install, some people say it will install Google Chrome. Other people, it might install Avast, I'm not sure. But it is installing some extra tools. Okay, so let's see. It is let the other programs being bundled, including Avast Free Antivirus, AVG Antivirus Free, Google Chrome, and Google Toolbar. All things I would not want to do. But, every Windows program does this. This is why you should switch to Linux. All right, but nevertheless, CCleaner used to be good. It is no longer a good company as of a few years ago. So if you have been living under a rock, do get CCleaner off your computer and go with alternatives. There are some good Windows alternatives. I can't remember what they are. Check the comments down there. I'm sure somebody will tell us all about them. So anyway, though, Windows Defender is now warning against CCleaner. So, hey, I can agree with Windows on that one, right? All right. People will not abandon Windows 7. The OS is still found on a quarter of all devices, and some people still use Vista. Those people are crazy. I don't know who's using Vista or why. But the Windows 7, I get it. Because Windows 10's a horrendous, abominable nightmare. It's like, in a nutshell, Windows 7 reached its end-of-life extended support in January, so you might expect its user numbers have dropped drastically over the last 8 months, but you'd be wrong. The venerable OS's market share has barely moved as it remains on a quarter of all devices. All right, so first released in 2009, exited mainstream support January 2015. It's like, maybe Microsoft should get the hint and say, maybe people don't like Windows 10. Maybe we should just go back and support Windows 7 for a while. I don't know. But Windows 7 is running on 23.34% of devices, just 2% lower than the ones it did in early January. So really hasn't dropped a whole lot. Very fascinating there. Poor Mac. Look at that poor Mac. And they don't give us Linux on that view. So sad. So elsewhere, in Windows 8.1, decline continues, yet it is still found on 2.87% of devices. Windows XP has 0.82% of the market share. And a very small people still use Windows Vista for some reason. Yeah. It's also good news for Microsoft in general. Windows operating systems are now found on 87.03% of all devices, Mac OS with 8.95 and Linux on 3.57. That's actually an increase, except I don't usually follow these statistics, so I'm not sure how that compares to the place I usually get my statistics. Why are so many people holding on to it? Familiarity plays a part. Windows 10 reputation for system borking updates hasn't improved. In the May 2020, it caused plenty of issues, including the very annoying interconnectivity bug. Privacy concerns remain too, although Microsoft hasn't tried to address those. FYI, Microsoft has backported those privacy issues into Windows 7 and Windows 8, so that's not particularly a valid one anymore. But yeah, I will stick with Windows 7 before Windows 10, but that's why I switched to Linux, because I saw the writing on this wall, and that's why I moved my systems to Linux. And our final story for the day, the NSA warns Windows users, update now or face devastating damages. What this has to do with, I can't remember if we've talked about this one or not, but there was a big worm going around called Bluekeep that was impacting Windows 7. Now, Bluekeep is kind of like the WannaCry. Was it WannaCry? I think it was the WannaCry, where it's a worm, so you don't have to actively open the spammer's PDF in order to get it. It's going to get on your system if your system is vulnerable. Now, how is your system vulnerable? Well, if you have port 3389 open, which is a Microsoft Remote Desktop feature, you are going to be vulnerable. So as long as your router port's blocking 3389, your firewall's blocking 3389, you're probably going to be safe for this for the time being. Nevertheless, there are a lot of issues with this type of issue. It basically will get in and install a full Trojan on anything. Windows 7 is vulnerable to it because they have not pushed any updates. So you either got to get that extended update fee or upgrade to Windows 10, or hey guys, just switch to Linux. I mean, really. So that's kind of what we have going on there as far as the NSA giving us yet another warning. Hey, warning us about our phones, warning us about our computers, you know, whatever that happens to be. So let me know your thoughts to these articles in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.